Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you how to can diced tomatoes. I love canning my own diced tomatoes. They taste way better than store-bought. I haven't bought diced tomatoes in I think 4 to 5 years. It's easy, it's just long. It's a long process because you have to blanch and get the skins off the tomatoes, but otherwise it's great. They taste amazing and you can use them all throughout the winter for multiple things. And I use a lot for my spaghetti sauce. If you haven't seen that video, I would encourage you to go check it out. And this works for diced, crushed, or whole. You can use this recipe for all of them in one. I'm just going to do diced today because that's what I'm going to be using myself. But I'm going to show you everything that we need for this recipe. This is what you're going to need. Now, I have about 12 pounds of tomatoes here. You can use any tomato you want. Don't ever buy into the lie you have to use a certain tomato to do diced tomatoes or salsa or anything like that. That's nonsense. I have mostly Cherokee purples and black crims in here, and then I even have some really big cherry tomatoes that are humongous, and then I have some Romas and just a couple other tomatoes. You can use whatever kind you like, and I actually prefer the taste of the Cherokee purples and stuff when I am canning for diced tomatoes. So you need about 12 pounds of tomatoes. You're going to need salt, pickling salt. Remember, don't use table salt. Citric acid or lemon juice. You can use either one. I've used both in the past. I don't prefer one over the other. I just don't have a ton of lemon juice left, so I'm going to use my citric acid today, which I don't have a problem with either. Now, if you're doing quarts or pints, I'll give you the measurements. Now, I am doing pints for my diced tomatoes. For a pint, you need 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. But if you are doing citric acid, you need 1/4 of a teaspoon for a pint. Now, if you're going to do quarts, lemon juice, you will need 2 tablespoons for a quart. Or the citric acid, you need 1/2 teaspoon per quart. And each one is going to have the salt. It's not put together. You're going to put it in each jar. And now the salt for a quart, you need 1 teaspoon. And for a pint, you need 1/2 teaspoon. And I'll put all of these in the description because I'll put the recipe in there. This is really easy. Now I have vinegar. That's just for my solution. And then remember, I have all of my stuff ready to can. But this is all you're going to need for diced tomatoes. It's easy. Just takes a while. A lot of patience. Have your canning station set up. I already have, I think, 10 jars in there. I don't know if they're all going to fit in there with their lids and bands, but I'm going to try. If I need more, I'll do another pot. You're going to need a pot of boiling water because we are going to blanch the tomatoes to get the skins off. And then you need, I have a tea kettle of water back here heating up for my lids and bands, and then I'm going to put another pot back there with filtered water just in case you need to fill up a little bit of the jar with the filter water. But remember, have all your canning stuff ready to go. Now, you want to make sure that your tomatoes are ripe, but they're not overly squishy for diced tomatoes. You want them to be slightly firm, or even you can even use slightly underripe ones. So this is really easy. What we're going to do is we're going to have to blanch all these, so we're going to have to get the skins off. If you've seen my other videos, I am going to make an X on each of these tomatoes. Now I have multiple different tomatoes right here. Use your ugly tomatoes. A lot of people get some, I call them ugly tomatoes, off the vine. Use your ugly tomatoes for this. It's perfect. All right, what you're going to do is you're just going to put an X on the bottom of every single one, okay? I mean, I have different tomatoes, even cherry tomatoes. They're really big. Even you want to use a small, use a small. Okay? I'm going to do that to all of the tomatoes, put an X on every single one of them. And then we're going to put them in hot boiling water. And we're going to get a big bowl full of ice water to shock them after we take them out once we blanch them. So make sure you have all that ready. I'm going to go get the bowl of ice ready right now. Another thing, you can do this before or after. I prefer it before, it works better. You need to core out the stems in the core, and remember, strawberry core works great for this. It's a multi-tool. I use this for everything. So get all of the cores out of all these tomatoes after you cut the X in the bottom. Got my ice bath ready. Make sure it's a lot of ice. You want it really cold. Once all the tomatoes are scored on the bottom, you put them in the boiling water. Make sure it was boiling. It's not now because we just put a bunch in. And you're going to let them sit in there for about a minute, minute and a half, until the skin, you can see the skin starting to come off on that one. And you let them sit, and right when you take them out, put them in the ice water. Just put them in the cold water. Keep going. If you need to add more ice, because we're going to let these sit in the ice water until the next batch is ready, and then I'll take them out and put them on my cutting board and just keep going until I have no more tomatoes in here. This is what the tomatoes look like when they're blanched. You just pull the skin. We're going to take all the skin off. So what you're going to do is you're going to take every single one of these tomatoes, have a junk bowl, trash bowl, and what you're going to do is you're just going to strip all of them of their skin. See? That one's almost completely off. Take the skins off, throw them in the bowl, go around the whole thing. If you miss any spots, take it all off. Make sure you get all the skin. I'm going to get the rest of it off of that. And then once we're done with that, we're going to look at all the tomatoes and make sure there's no bad spots to cut out. All right, all the tomatoes have the skins off them. Now, you can see right here around the rim, the skin didn't want to come off very well. I'm just going to cut that out. But I'm going to look at each tomato, and you can see there's a bad spot right here. All I'm going to do is cut it out. The rest of the tomato is fine. And then I'm going to cut off any extra skin, or if it's going up the side, any bad parts. Now, the little ones, these bigger ones I'm probably going to cut into 4s, and the smaller ones I'm going to cut into halves because they don't need to be really tiny. When you're going through your tomatoes, make sure you get all the bad spots out. You want to cut them out, okay? Don't leave them in there. Sometimes you'll find that it's just a tiny spot, and then sometimes you'll find it goes all the way through. See, there's nothing wrong with it now. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut this off. Be careful when you're doing this. Should use a smaller knife for this. I'm going to get my paring knife out. If you see any more skin, pull it off. Now this one is fine. Make sure this one's fine, and I'm going to put it to the side, and I'm going to go through all of them the same way. A lot of these are okay, but some of my really ugly ones have some bad spots in them that I have to take out. So take out all the bad spots, put them aside, and then we're going to chop them up. And when we chop these up, I do really big chunks. If you do too small of chunks, it just pulverizes them and there's nothing left when you can it. Always do bigger chunks. They're going to cook down. Don't worry about it. We're going to be doing the raw pack today. There's raw pack and hot pack. And it's just like its name says. Raw pack is leaving it raw like this, sticking it in the jar, and then putting it in the canner. Hot pack is when you cook them down some and then put them in the jars and then the canner. I don't like the hot pack method. I like the raw pack, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to keep going on these until I'm done. Okay, I've been using the same 2 bowls the entire time. I'm just switching one off for the other and rinsing them out. But when you're done with the tomatoes, getting all the bad spots, we're going to start to cut them up. But you have to also have your water on and turn it up to high. You want to have everything done at the same time. Have this almost ready. It's a medium high. And you can hear it start boiling, but this water, this is filtered water. This is if you need to fill the jars up to the allotted head space, which is a ½ inch. ½ inch head space is what I'm going to do on the jars. But have this ready, everything else ready. before you start cutting up the tomatoes, because once you are done with the tomatoes, you're going to start putting them in the jar, and that's going to go fast. Once you get your tomatoes, you're just going to start cutting them all up. Now, remember I said do big slices. I know they may seem excessively big, but it's not. Look how thick that is. They're going to cook down. Oh, isn't that so pretty? I don't know if this is a Cherokee Purple or a black creme. Might be a black creme because there's more green. But you're going to cut them up in slices like this. And what I do is I take it. Remember, big slices. So I'm going to do big chunks. Probably just that one into threes. See this? Big chunks. They're going to cook down when they're in the canner. So you don't want it to shred down into nothing if you cut them too small. And that's what will happen, trust me. So you want big chunks. And when you're done, take all the ones you just did, throw them in a clean bowl, and just keep going. Oops. Shot. And if there's any juice left on the board, because I've cleaned this board, I will throw it in there with the tomatoes. It's not a big deal. But no matter which one you're cutting, do thick, okay? Even these, I'm cutting thicker. You really don't want them to go down to nothingness. They won't be good then. And remember, I'm using all kinds of different varieties. So I'm going to have multicolored jars, but I think they're beautiful when they're like that. So keep cutting until you're done chopping them all up. Also, this is the stage, since I'm doing diced, mine's going to be a little bit different. Now, if you were doing crushed, you could hand crush them, cut them up and hand crush them, or you could use a blender. And if you, obviously, if you're leaving them whole, you're leaving them whole, but that's not what I'm doing. This is for diced, but this is where you would decide which one you wanted to do. You can even do halves too, if you wanted to do that, for like a stewed tomato. That works too. All right, there's the tomatoes diced. I got my water, and I'm about to pour the water inside there. Now I have salt. I poured some out. It's just easier to get out of the bag. That is a half a teaspoon of salt and then a fourth of a teaspoon of citric acid. Okay, and then I have my vinegar solution for the rims. I'm going to do the lids, have that ready. All right, if you're new at this and you just want to do one, just do one. You don't have to do multiples, okay? Don't feel pressured to do that. In each jar, I'm going to put the stuff at the bottom, okay? So, half a teaspoon of canning salt. And then a fourth of a teaspoon citric acid. Throw it in there. Keep those together. Alright, I put them all at the bottom. Now I'm just going to ladle. Remember, you're leaving a 1/2 inch headspace, okay? And you want to leave it about right there, because you want to fill the rest up at the top with liquid. And you can tap it a couple times to get some of the bubbles out. I'm actually going to use a chopstick to debubble this. You can debubble them that way. See the bubbles trapped in there? My debubbler broke, so I just go around the rim, push it down, make sure all, see how far it went down now? Now I can add just a tad more in there, not too much. Oops. And then I'm going to fill it to the line for my headspace at a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to keep doing that to all of these. I'll do one more. Oops, I think I overfilled that one. Yep. That's alright. I'll get a spoon and get it out. Let's debubble it first, because sometimes tap it a little bit. Yeah, I know I have too much in this one. So I'm going to just grab right off the top. Like that. And sometimes I'll push it down to see if the juice will fill in. This one probably will fill in. Let's check the headspace on that. Ooh, that's hot. So 1/2 inch almost. So I'm going to fill these up to the 1/2 inch headspace with water once I'm done. And I'm just going to get a little bit for each one. Now you could do the juice, but I'm trying to get as many jars as I can out of this, and you can put hot water on top that's been filtered. Oh, actually that one was perfect. Now let's check the headspace. Remember your headspace tool? 1/2 inch is right here. It's the second stair step. You want to look at it like that. That one needs a tad more. And now I do it right under. You want to do it right under so you don't go over and it doesn't siphon out. Check it again. Not going to hurt to check things more than once. Okay. Now I'm going to take my cloth, dip it in my vinegar solution, and wipe the rims. If you need to, dip it a second time, which I probably will. So you want to get everything off the rim. You can see the stuff that's left. And then put your lids on. I didn't think that one was going to work. And remember your bands. I make sure everything's sanitized. Okay. Remember, fingertip tight. You don't want your lids to buckle. Like that. Resistance, stop. Stop. Okay, now these need to go in the canner and get some more. Right, now I barely used any of that water. That's just in case. I like to fill it and squeeze the juice into to fill the space. Now these are my 2 last jars. I used every bit of tomatoes from that 12 pounds. So I used it all. I think I got 10 jars. So now I need to put these in the canner. Let's see. And by the way, this is how you're supposed to hold these. I've seen people hold it like this. This is incorrect. You hold it by the top and the rubber part sits at the bottom. Let's see. Oop. It's fogging up I got room for one more in there. Just make sure you got a good grip on them. Oh, it's gonna be tight. Get in there. I gotta fix that one. But I think I got 10 jars. I gotta fix that somehow. It's all cockeyed. But I'm gonna bring this back up, turn it on full blast high, put the lid on. I am after I fix this. And before you do that, you want to check to make sure you have, remember my 1-inch line, it's kind of faded now. I have to redo it, but it's got plenty. It actually has too much. So I'm going to just take a bowl. This is a really big bowl. Dip it in. Put Put it to the side because this is going to cook for 40 minutes. Okay, you're going to process these for 40 minutes, and it's going to be spilling everywhere if you have it too high. And it's still over. I might take out just a little bit more. I'll probably do about 1.5 inches. This is about 2 inches still. And you're going to process this for 40 minutes. We're going to let this come to a rolling boil before we start our timer for 40 minutes. Alright, we're at a rolling boil. Set the timer for 40 minutes. And also remember to adjust for your elevation. This is for my elevation. You have to look that up. You have to find out how much more you have to add when you process, when you can, or pressure can. Timer just went off. Turn it off. You can take the lid off if you want. I'm going to let them sit in there for 5 minutes before I pull them out. Remember, when you're taking them out of the canner, don't tip them. The water will come off. It'll evaporate off. Remember to leave them wherever you put them for at least 24 hours. Now look, see the separation? Most of that's juice, the tomato juice and some water, whichever ones I added on. Once this cools completely, and tomorrow I check the seals, I shake them up a little bit once I know the seals are good, and all this will redistribute back into the jar and not be all the way at the top. So next morning, you gotta check your bands. Check your seals. Take off the bands. And I know they're separated still, but I'm going to shake them up once I check all the seals. And if any did not seal, you can put them in the fridge and use them. I personally don't like to do that if anything's been sitting out, but you can. What you're going to do, check the seals, give it a really good tug on the lid only. It's not coming off. You know you sealed it right. Especially with anything acidic, I definitely wipe down my jars just because there's residue that gets into the pot, that gets on your jars. See how it would separate itself back out from this? And those bubbles are just fine. It's not going to hurt nothing. Remember to check the seals on each. Should be able to hold it. Give it a good tug. Label them and put them up. I want to show you guys real quick. Here are some crushed tomatoes. You know how I said the recipe will work for different types: crushed tomatoes, whole tomatoes, diced tomatoes, even halves. So this is crushed from actually 2021. And then whole tomatoes. You can see the whole thing. So remember, this recipe can do more than just diced. That's just what I made yesterday. And you can see that there's still chunks in there, and they haven't dissolved into nothing. All right, guys. So diced tomatoes, you can do crushed, diced, whole, half, whatever you want to do. The measurements for each jar will be the same for a quart or pint, and I'll put it in the description. Remember, you can use any type of tomatoes that you want. You don't have to use a certain type. They all taste great. In fact, one of the best canned tomatoes I ever canned was a bunch of cherry tomatoes. It took a really long time because you had to score and get all the skin off of the tiny little tomatoes, but I did like 6 jars of those. They were the most flavorful things that I've ever canned. It was amazing, but I don't think I'll ever do it again because it was so much work. It helps if you have someone to help you do it. Invite somebody over, split the jars with them, or do something. Do a double batch, let them take half, let you keep one. That way you guys can work together and it's not so much work. It does take a long time. It took me about 2 hours, 2.5 hours from start to finish. If you have time, if you have a garden, it's free. That way I don't have to buy it. I think a 12 pack of Diced tomatoes from the store is like anywhere from $10 to $13, and that's wholesale, like at Sam's. But I have it in my garden. It's free. I have the jars. I already had all the stuff. Now, if you're buying this brand new, like if you're getting all the supplies, it does cost a little bit of money, but you have it for next season and the season after that. So it's not too bad after that. But for me, it was free, and it's fresh. I know what's going into it. I know what's in my food. Go and can some tomatoes. I'll see you guys next time.